So we're going to start here with a few words from Dr. Michael Allen talking about the Allen Academy and why this new offering is one we think you ought to take a look at today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. So some of you know that I've been working on digital learning systems since the late 60s. And I've seen fascinating history in the field of some absolutely just goosebump experiences with some of the early systems that helped impaired learners as well as very high capability people achieve their full potential, go at their speed, achieve things that were so contrasting with what was happening with traditional forms of instruction and learning, that they were very, very inspiring. And I just wanted to see this proliferate globally. And so have been working on trying to uncover the keys to success and helping learners, helping corporations achieve their performance goals through superior performance of their employees and so on. And there are just spectacular results have been achieved here and there. And over this time period, we got all of our wishes. We got, so it reminds you to be careful what you wish for. When I started, we had black and white alphanumeric screens. Actually, we had teletype machines that were really noisy and rattled out text and so on. And if you responded to a question, you'd press a button, a light would come on telling you that your response was being transmitted and you were waiting in a poll for a central computer to come around, look at what your answer to a question was, and then start typing out feedback. But even with these really, really primitive systems, we were able to accomplish some extraordinary learning successes. But we obviously wanted something quiet because we did a lot of this in libraries, and we had to have special rooms, and then we built special sound deadening boxes around the teletype machines to quiet them down and so forth. I mean, really archaic compared to today. We had no graphics, we had no animation, we had no sound, we had no touch input or mouse or anything else. And yet, the pioneers that were doing this work did achieve those extraordinary learning outcomes. It was fantastic. But we'd say to ourselves, if only we had video, if only we had all the media that we have now, if only we had networking and so on. Well, we've got all of those things, but I have to say today, even though e-learning is used pervasively, pretty much around the world, and even in third world countries where you wouldn't expect it, a lot of it produces very poor learning experiences. They just aren't what we're capable of. And I think a lot of organizations worry more about how much time somebody spends authoring a learning event than how much time all the learners and the students out there are going to spend on it. And if you're wasting their time because it's not a good learning event, then it's really unfortunate. Somehow, Ethan, we lost our slides. Anyway, so as Ethan works to get the slide back, I just am passionate about getting us back to a point where at least a high percentage of all the learning events that we are creating and delivering to people are really beneficial. And we know how to do this. It's not a mystery. I agree that there's some art to it for sure, and creativity, but our legacy methods have just not been working. And we need to try to bring people around so that they can see what's possible today that wasn't possible before, but also what are the essential components of effective learning experiences. So we hire in our studios, a lot of instructional designers and developers from various backgrounds. From a lot of universities, we have to teach almost basic skills, even though people may have master's degrees. It's just unfortunate. The bridging from theoretical understanding to practice is not one that's just intuitive, really, at least for not a lot of people. And we need to help them unlearn some of the things that they've learned and teach them new concepts and new skills before they come up at least to the standards of our organization and where we think everybody really should be. So instead of just continuing to do only the best for our clients, we would like to openly share everything that we've learned in hopes that it's going to be beneficial for everybody else. So this is a dream of mine for many years, that we would be able to open a school for digital learning arts. And that is indeed what we're doing now. And we want to further this as a profession. And we want people who are outstanding in this field really getting the recognition that they ought to have, so that other people will aspire to that same level of competency and help improve the learning experiences, regardless of whether it's in an institution or self-study or wherever it is. We just want those learning experiences to be really beneficial. I have this kind of maybe silly notion that if the world were better educated, the world would be a happier place and we would get along with each other better. And I think it's worth giving it a shot anyway to get there. We've created the academy with 4 colleges in it, and we are working with some of the top people in each of the relevant fields. They are creating fantastic curriculum programs for them. The first one, near and dear to our hearts, of course, is instructional design and development. Ethan's going to be talking about this program in more detail in just a minute. But again, we are really open to sharing everything that's working for us in hopes that it's beneficial to everybody else too. But we also see that leaders in organizations are often not very smart buyers or not very smart investors. The things that appeal to them because they're shiny and glitzy may not be really great, effective learning experiences. And often budgets and resources are very much inadequate, and the passionate people in our fields have to scrape and work weekends and evenings and get their friends to help and so forth to get things done. We would like to work with those people to help them make smarter buying decisions and smarter investments so that we can all do a better job. Then in the third college, learning game design is something that we feel is often misdirected. Just because it's a game doesn't mean it's a good learning experience. But a lot of people who have designed things that seem to subscribe to valid learning principles are also boring learning experiences. And if a learning experience is boring, then student minds go somewhere else. They don't get involved and they don't get nearly as much out of the learning event as they should. So a friend of mine said some years ago, nobody does a better job of ruining the fun in a game than an instructional designer. I think he said we instructional designers. That's appropriate. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again, where instructional designers really do ruin the fun in a game. The resulting product is it's neither fun nor very instructional, right? But there are ways to do this that are really, really effective. And so we'd like to separate the noise from the treasures of learning game design, and that's what we're going to do in the third college. And last but certainly not least is measuring the impact of our effects. so few organizations measure the impact. And if we can't get credit for our work by showing impact, then that cycles back around to we're not going to get the resources that we need. And so practical methods of measuring impact exist, and we would like to create a profession in that field that is going to assist all of us in doing the other aspects of creating great learning. So I think this looks like a great academy, and I want to enroll in some of these courses myself because they are just outstanding and rare learning events for us in our profession. And I hope you all will do the same. So thank you very much. That's my intro, and I'll throw it back to Ethan.
Well, thank you, Michael. I can only reinforce what you've said because I believe that all so firmly too, based on my own training and experience. But I have to say that, you know, the one experience that I have all the time that I just want to not have others feel this is I meet people and they say, well, what do you do? And you say, well, I design online learning. And they very politely say, oh, doesn't that sounds really interesting. And then when you continue the conversation and say, oh, have you ever taken training online? You find out that if they get to trust you, they say, yeah, it was really terrible, or they, you know, yeah, I didn't get anything out of it. And it's such a terrible feeling to be identified with that and knowing that it can be so wonderful. And so really my practical mission is to help people not have to do that terrible e-learning, both from the student's perspective and the professionals. And so that really is, in my personal motivation for being involved here, that keeps me going every day, is saying it can be so much better, and people can do it. It isn't that hard. We just need to have the right sort of experiences. And it's that thinking and that desire that really is fueling this Allen Certified Instructional Professional program that is in that first college that Dr. Allen talked about. And we are having a new cohort of that starting in January. We've been doing it, and we're going to have a new group, and hopefully you might be interested in joining that group. The purpose of it and sort of some of the main features of it is that I've been teaching this for a long, long time, and there's several major impediments. One of them is that people don't get a chance to do the right things with the tools. You know, there's great tools, Storyline, Articulate, Storyline, and Adobe Captivate can do wonderful things, and yet many people never get out of the habit of using them sort of not very powerfully. And there's not a really good way to figure out how to create interactivity, and so that's one of our goals, is to create that knowledge, that people will now be able to use those tools in a way that actually creates learning. Also, people seem to have a not very powerful idea of interactivity, in that we sort of get stuck in standard interactions, you know, multiple choice, push buttons, true and false, which sort of are what we've come to believe e-learning is, and yet they're terribly inefficient and ineffective in creating motivation and creating learning. And so really thinking, how can we apply the theories of learning, the theories of interactivity to the actual problems, not just creating a time-wasting experience. And then finally, we recognize that people just don't have enough time to develop the right experiences to gain confidence. And so another really important part when we were designing our program is figuring out how can we have a really good supportive mentoring practice component, so that people can work on a real project, but also continue to learn and improve their skills. And so it's those features that drove this curriculum. It has 4 components. It's level 1, and we have 2 cohorts, either for Storyline and captivate. Our January one will be storyline, I believe, is what our intention is, but it sort of will be based on the interest we get. But it has 4 experiences. First is designing interactivity, which really looks at what experience the learner should have online when they're working independently that's going to create change. It is more than just answering questions, repeating rote behaviors. It's creating engaging, challenging experiences that learners get absorbed in. It's not that hard to do, but until you've seen it and done it and discussed it, it seems almost impossible. And so our first course is really about opening up the capability of what e-learning can do from an interactivity point of view. Now, the second course is really a practical one where we take the tool and figure out how can I create these ideas I have. What I've come to experience is that a lot of people through that first experience find out, I get what e-learning should be, what interactivity should be, and yet I don't have a clue as to how I could use my tool to do that. And it's such an easy trap to fall in to say, well, I can't do it because my tool isn't sophisticated enough. Well, it isn't that at all. It's just we need a little bit of experience using our authoring tools in more creative ways. And so the second course is really to open up, is a hands-on experience to using the authoring tools in ways that you wouldn't exactly figure out on your own. Once we have that going, then we can actually move beyond just the interactivity experience and really look at what do we know instructionally about how people learn, how information should be presented, how it should be reviewed, how you can create different sorts of approaches for problem solving versus conceptual learning versus procedures. And there's some very specific and amazingly powerful techniques that we can apply to the specific type of learning, and we deal with that in the third course. And then finally, and I think this is really one of the most powerful things about the whole program, is that we finish it with a capstone project and coaching opportunity. That throughout the first 3 courses, learners are encouraged to start identifying a project that they are really facing in their job, and then start applying the rules and inspiration of interactivity, how to make sure it's instructionally sound, and how we can put it into practice by actually using the tools at your disposal. And so that's a individualized project that has mentoring and special time with our instructors to help work your way through a design project. And we really have found that these components are hard to come up with in an unstructured environment. And without that, people tend to gravitate toward sort of the lowest common denominator, which are page turners with sort of senseless questions. And this really is designed and has resulted in much more creative and empowered designers. So that's the overall, get a little bit more details. The Design 101 course is a foundation for all the Academy programs. And we learn about, if you've been familiar with Dr. Allen's writing about CCAF interactivity, about motivation, and so forth. And we talk about a little bit of the iterative design process of SAM. But it really is to open up learners' eyes to the great power of instructional interactivity. And so these are some of the elements that will be covered there, creating meaningful content, manipulating risk, avoiding the tedious question forms, and so forth. Following that, the registration is now open. I want to make sure, and Chris will give some more information about how to do that at the end of the session. But our first sessions will begin on Tuesday, January 14th in the new year. Then that is a 6-session experience, and it extends over several weeks. And then after that, we will follow that with building instructional interactions, and that's to fill that gap between understanding design and being able to build things yourself. And what we do there, it's a technique we've had great success with, is what we call brain teasers, that we work together in illustrating some new techniques or some unexpected ways to use the tools. And then we challenge the learners with a little project. It's one interaction that's finished, and we provide all the resources, all the graphics and stuff necessary. And the challenge is to work between sessions to figure out how to build that thing on your own. And then at the next session, we have a debrief where we talk about how people came about it. But we found that this problem-solving approach is so important in developing confidence. Too often, software training is just follow me, follow me, follow me, do this, move your cursor here. And you do that successfully, but you end up not being able to do anything independently. And so we're really proud of using that brain teaser technology and methodology that has worked so well. And so we go through a really nice tier of skills to get you able to do things like this. You probably have seen this example if you've seen me speak before, because it's such a great example of interactivity. And it isn't that hard to build, but it is sort of impossible to build if you don't have some of these insightful ways of manipulating the authoring tools. Okay, so that's the technology, how to build it course, Design 102, and then we come back with a more instructional focused course. And once we're familiar and comfortable with interactivity, then we can apply. So how do we know about how the brain works? How can we get the content from SMEs and translate that into instructional formats? How do we write particularly effectively for interactivity? And then just really important techniques to make sure that what we do in e-learning is going to stick. How do we transfer those skills to the work environment? And those are the topics that we cover in that third course. And then finally, as I said, there's a capstone where you're going to work on real projects. Students get expert coaching from the academy instructors, and then it's something that you could have immediate impact from in your organization when the course is over. What are we going to be looking for? It's a CCAF model where these pieces are so vital for creating good instruction, and we know that there has to be context, so the learner knows, why is this something I should pay attention to? When and where will I use it? They need to be challenged with goals that are meaningful to them. What success means, what kind of help will get me through this, get me past the risks involved, and then really manipulating the interface so that people are using gestures and actions that, again, transfer and allow more meaningful interactions between the content that's presented in the lesson and the learner's thinking. And then finally, the feedback. How do you express consequences, judgment, provide really useful explanations? And so this model really is in the core of what this experience is leading to, but it really is intended that you're going to come out with really deep, rich confidence in all of these areas. So we've also got some additional ways that you can get recognition for this. And Christopher, you want to talk a bit about this?
Sure. We've partnered up with Credly, and we are using their Acclaim platform to issue digital credentials upon completion of a program like this. And what I think is so neat about their platform and digital credentials like this is, unlike a badge that might sit someplace and feel like a gimmick, this is really meant to be something that is highly shareable and points back to real evidence. And since the final course of the ACIP Level 1 program is building a capstone project that does demonstrate that skills from the 3 courses prior have transferred into your work and changed it in an interesting way. We really wanted to be able to deliver a meaningful credential to each of our students. So it's something that's shareable on LinkedIn and does point back. It has links back to what it is that the student did to earn this particular credential, and you can hang and link parts of your project or further evidence. If you feel like you're ready for the Allen Academy, as Ethan was saying, this next cohort program is going to start in January. If you go to allenacademy.com, there is a handy link on the right-hand side of the page that will take you to more information about the program, as well as a way to either be invoiced for the program, and there's also a couple different payment options. You can pay for it all at once, or you can pay for it in 3 installments. And following today's webinar, I will shoot out a set of white papers to all of the attendees that cover, well, at least as an introduction to many of the concepts that Ethan was talking about in our first course, including background information on CCAF and SAM and the 7 magic keys. So with that, we made our 30-minute scheduled webinar time for today. Certainly happy to stick around and ask questions or answer questions to anybody who has them. If you'd like to send any notes through the chat window, I will share them with Ethan and we can answer them live, or you can connect with us afterwards. Thank you very much, David. We are excited to offer this first program.
Yes, thanks very much. I'm sure would be very willing to talk about any more details. If you have questions, you can contact us and we can continue to dialogue about how this could really have a important role in the development of your team.
This next cohort, which starts in January, it will be all virtual training. We've mixed and matched with the first cohort that we offered, including at least 1 course face-to-face. Expect future opportunities in 2020 to be a mix of virtual and face-to-face. But starting in January, that next cohort is all virtual. The Academy will also be offering some a la carte courses. We're working with a slew of industry experts to create additional content that builds on top of this particular program. And we are looking at ways to manage students so that they can go through this program 1 course at a time as it fits their schedule. Rob is asking how long we're expecting it to take. The cohort program takes about 3 months to get through, and it's a combination of 6 2-hour virtual meetings per course, with some additional homework time required.
Yeah, each offering is going to vary a little bit because we work around major holidays and so forth, and have a break week between courses, and so depending on exactly where it lies, it may take a couple more weeks or a couple less. But we're looking at roughly a 3-month footprint for each program for the total 4 courses.
Rob, are you asking whether or not we'll cover how to do video interactions?
Yeah, if you are asking that, we certainly do talk about that both in terms of interactivity, you know, how video adds to and sometimes detracts from video, from instruction. And so we really, and we talk about how to incorporate it from a technical point of view, but it certainly is one of the media that is central to our tools as we're talking about how can we best engage learners.
David, we haven't set a hard deadline for signing up for the January 14th cohort. I believe there is money back guarantee language that talks around, you know, having been signed up at least 7 days before a cohort starts, and the ability to either back out or exchange for a different cohort. I certainly can direct you to that language after this webinar. Well, fantastic. I will put my email address, again, this is Christopher Allen speaking, in the chat. If anyone has further questions afterwards, please feel free to just send me an email and I will answer the best that I can as promptly as possible.
Well, thank you for taking the time to spend with us. We would love to have more contact with you, and if any of this sparks your interest, sure let us know and see where that can go.
All right. Thanks very much, Ethan. Talk to everybody soon.
Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah.
Yep.